Welcome to book club number 5. Dr. Miller with one of my favorite authors in terms of reading, and his book with Thibaudeau and Carter called The Maximum Muscle Bible, published in 2016. So the time I'm recording this is already 4 years old. Time flies when you're having fun. Now, I like Christian Thibaudeau, and I know he at times has been controversial. Some people disagree with him, but welcome to the world of exercise and sports science. I don't believe in everything he says, but this is what I do like about it. And I'm profiling the author here. I don't know as much about Paul Carter, but I'm assuming they're acquaintances, and obviously Christian Thibaudeau thinks enough of him to publish a book with them, then he probably knows his stuff. And after reading some of his contributions to the book, he certainly seems knowledgeable, for whatever that's worth from me. But Thibaudeau, you kind of saw him years ago. I think it was on T Nation the first time. He's got a couple other books. He always kind of cracked me up because of his, a lot of shirtless pictures and sunglasses, very much, living the bro lifestyle, it looks like to me. But that aside, and I say that only just because I remember seeing these books like, what in the world, but you start reading what he has to say, and he is very well thought, right? He's been in different worlds, from the CrossFit world to the Olympic weightlifting world, to the bodybuilding world, to the powerlifting world, to high performance athletes. He's been across the board, and a lot of times that doesn't mean anything. I've seen I've seen coaches that have been at the highest levels of their game, so to speak, and not been very good coaches. They just kind of lucked in the situation. They were, they spoke a really good game, but they really didn't know what the heck they were doing. He actually, from what I've read and seen, this is the quality about him that kind of had me interested in what he had to say. And it's the same thing you'll see with Dr. Mike Israetel, Dr. Mann, which I profiled his book on here, and, many of these great authors and leaders in the field, is they're training also, they are coaching also, and they are reflecting on what they're doing. It's not just, I'm going to stick to a dogma and just do it over and over and over and over again. It's, hey, we're basically doing research without, we're doing this white paper research. So we're doing, this stuff we're never going to publish. But we're observing what's going on and trying new things, and that's not working. And let's step outside the box. This is even outside of what my dogma may say, but I'm going to follow it for a time and give it a shot. And so I see that in Thibaudeau. He's on T Nation quite a bit. He had his article that I found very interesting, looking at this idea of people who respond and don't respond as well, and broke it down by their neurological system. It's probably one of the most viewed articles, I'm guessing, on T Nation last time I checked. An older article. I don't necessarily agree with every part of it, but man, it does a good job of explaining some of the differences and maybe some of the approaches then to training that should occur as a result of these different profiles. And so, while not perfect, nobody in this field has this perfect system. It's certainly food for thought. And that's where I view a lot of his information, is it's definitely food for thought, and I think from a credible source. So that's a little about him. Again, Paul Carter is somebody I know less about, but if they're running in the same circles, I'll give him a benefit of the doubt to start with, just because of this reputation of Christian Thibaudeau. And so the book itself is addressing strength and hypertrophy, a little bit of power as well, but more strength and hypertrophy. Paul Carter talks more in the powerlifting world and connecting some of the concepts in the book to how it can help a powerlifter. So, for instance, he'll talk about hypertrophy training for the musculature, diagnosing maybe a movement, right? So, like being slow off the floor in a deadlift. Well, what do you need to work on? Well, using isolation exercises, not necessarily isolation exercises. We could change the name of them to supportive exercises, right? You're trying to bring up that weak part. You're focusing on that musculature that needs addressed in order to increase hypertrophy of that muscle and thus increase the strength of that muscle, and help the overall performance then of the big three. What I would, in terms of the book then, what is it about? There's some back information about, how to build muscle and strength and the difference between neurological and hypertrophy, neurological adaptations and changes in the cross-section area of the muscle. So you build the case for what we do know about the physiology, or at least what we know in that moment about the physiology of muscle, because it changes too. But then he goes off into some of these training approaches. And what I'd say the bulk of the book and the information in the book, and there's a great section on isolation training that it's probably just worth reading that. Really focusing on the quality of movement. I'm going to make a video about this as well, because I see the same thing, is that isolation movement is overdone and incorrectly and poorly done. It's just kind of thrown on at the end and just, not a lot of thought is given to it by many people who train. Again, not all, but many. And then maybe it's overdone by people thinking that's how you get bigger. It's really, Chris Thibaudeau makes a point, and he always has in his writings, that the compound movements are the way to succeed and to build muscle and to build strength. It's compound movements. Now, they have their downsides. Injury is higher. You can't go to failure as readily, and the fatigue is much higher when you do that. So you have to manage the use of compound movements well. But the major part of the book and the topics in the book, this is the downside, is it's for an advanced person. So this is not for the person who's just getting started. Like, don't bother, okay? In terms of helping you train. Now, if you want to just learn, it's a great book for that as well. But in terms of applying the concepts, and he even states this, it was him or Paul Carter, Thibaudeau or Carter at some point, that don't bother working on these things, these smaller things, until you build muscle for at least a year. And that's my year. I can't remember if they said a year or not. But in other words, train long enough and train hard, build the volume out, get stronger, right? Have a balanced program, build out the sets, build out the repetitions per sets, run through the rep spectrum before you use a lot of these advanced techniques. If you are underweight and just started training 4 weeks ago, these advanced techniques are not going to offer you much. You might as well just stick with and stay focused on your quality of movement and building out the volume. And so if you're ready, though, for more advanced technique, this is the book. Or this is a book. It's not the book. There's lots of books that are similar to this. So, overstatement there. It is a good book for kind of putting together all these set and repetition strategies, which I enjoy reading about, right? Some of them you may be familiar with, some of you not. Rest, pause, right? Structures and all the variants of that. Strip down method, right? The contrast method, pre-fatiguing muscles, compound sets, giant sets, all that is in here, and even some more, type of things looking at strength and how maybe using this idea of post-activation potentiation. That's been challenged recently, but regardless, even as post-activation performance enhancement, either way is trying to leverage the structure of sets in order to get the most out of the training. So I would say this book is majoring in the minors. Now, that doesn't mean it's not valuable, and usually I like to use that term because I feel like that's the field of exercise and sports science. Sometimes we major in the minors. What I'm saying there, though, is once you have that, I'm saying actually in a positive way this time, if you have the bulk of your training has been accomplished, in other words, you've gained some mass, you're feeling like you've gained strength, you're at a strength level, you can at least squat 1.5 times your body weight if you're a man and 1.25 if you're a woman. You're benching your body weight as a woman, not even like 1.2, and a man you're at 1.5. I'm just giving some generalities there, okay? You've probably been training long enough to see those markers or close to those markers occur. And so it might be that you are ready, like my delts need to come up a little bit. How do I do that, right? Just increasing delt volume is great, but there are some other ways. Are partial reps, do they have a place? Sure, they could, but it's not the bulk of your training. So that's what I mean. This book helps you major in the minors. It gives you that extra 5%. It gives you that extra 4% that that's what it's for. And that's what I'd recommend it for. If you're just starting out, don't bother to even indulge in any of these techniques yet. Don't get tangled up in them yet until you have trained successfully for at least a year, and even longer perhaps, especially if you're seeing success. Don't start messing with advanced techniques until you're ready. The one thing I would advise, though, that's in this book, and probably why I'm a little biased towards Chris Thibaudeau's work, is he's a big believer in variety, especially when it comes to exercise variety, and as I am. And so even if you're a newbie, do look at your programming and say, can I provide it, at least in my isometric work or my isolation work, not necessarily in compound movements, but in my isolation work, can I work in, even if you just change your lat pull down from a wide grip lat pull down to a V handle lat pull down, for a 4 to 8 week stretch, you move the exercises, but keep the muscle group pattern intact, right? So there's all kinds of ways you can do incline presses if you have a full gym, right? From plate loaded to 30 degree or to high 60 to 45 degree, right? Dumbbells, barbell, right? You name it. There's lots of different ways to train an incline press. Move that variety in there. If that's a compound movement, you can move the variety in there and still maintain the compound movement. So that's what I'm talking about when I say exercise variety. Don't change so fast that especially if you just start out, that you can't build out understand what the right intensity is for these exercises. But once you're starting to proceed a little bit, that is one area I would recommend. But some of these other kind of advanced set and rep schemes, you probably could hold off on until at least a year, if not further. Good book, though. Other than that, I don't have any reservations. For those that might be more inclined to say volume drives hypertrophy, he's going to be more of the relative intensity type of time under tension approach. I think both methods have merit. There's more than one road to Rome, and so he's taken that approach with hypertrophy training. So you might see that a little bit of a contrast with others that are more about volume as the main driver. He doesn't discount volume. He's just saying the intensity also matters. And so by manipulating time under tension, you don't necessarily have to build at the volume. You're just building out the total time, which what volume does. And I'm going to talk about some of the concepts because I see this when I train people as well, is the difference between different types of contraction. That's one of my big things, is the quality of movement and the type of contraction. The way that you contract the muscle matters. The length of contraction, intent of the contraction, the phases of the contraction, all those things matter and can be changed and modulated. If you're just starting out, just make sure you control, the eccentric and as fast as reasonable with the concentric, not losing contact with the barbell, not losing contact with the dumbbell, not losing contact with the load, essentially. And so you can keep tension on, but we don't need to overcomplicate it. This book, though, when you're ready, will take you to that next level. Again, like this video. If you found this information helpful, subscribe to the channel and comment below. I will see you in the